Great to have you join us this Tuesday morning on Breakfast Central. Thank you to our viewers here in Nigeria, across the continent, and those who are watching on YouTube. We have the next 2 hours to have some of the most important discussions happening here in Nigeria. I am Osaogi Ogbonwan.
And I am Olive Emodi. This morning, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest political stories, talking about the increase of kidnapping cases as well here in Nigeria. We also have our segment, Which Way Nigeria, where we have asked pertinent questions that hopefully we can get some answers to. We're not doing this alone this morning. We're joined by Adebola Adedugba, who brings us breakfast headlines. Good morning, Adebola.
Good morning, Olive and Asage. How are you guys doing this Tuesday morning?
We're good, I guess. I'm taking life one day at a time, I would say. But excited. It's the 30th of January. Just feels like it was yesterday. We're all screaming Happy New Year. And right now, we're almost at the end of the month.
Very true. Very true. And it's been, a pretty interesting year, but very, very tough for Nigerians. I don't think it started off in the brightest way for Nigerians. There's been too much that has happened in just the last 30 days. That has been really stressful. The cost of living, currently, I always will speak about the reality of what Nigerians are dealing with. And might sound like a broken record, but it is what it is. And people I saw yesterday a lot of people posting the prices of foodstuff in the market. The price of turkey, the price of a carton of noodles, the price of just one or two items here and there that 2 years ago or a year ago were completely different from where they are today. And it's just, basically painting a picture of what Nigerians really have to deal with. And I spoke about adjustment yesterday and how we've had to adjust and adjust and adjust. But how much more adjustment do Nigerians have to deal with, and how much more tighter will the rope be, for Nigerians? It's where we are, basically. And I hope that as we have these conversations, we're able to expand further on these little details here and there, and maybe hopefully make things better.
Yes, I mean, talking about the plight of the average Nigerian, I agree with you. The average Nigerian has a lot to contend with. When you talk about, the rising cost of living, there is insecurity ravaging the country. So I'm hoping, all of these menace would be addressed by those in government. Security officers, those at the helm of affairs, will try to make much more better economic policies, to help alleviate the suffering of the masses.
Very true.
Very true. I mean, we can only hope for the best. We will continue to ask questions to hold the government to account. That's our job here as the members of the fourth estate of the realm. Let's share what the big stories this morning are on Breakfast Central.
Yes, we share concerns over rising cases of kidnapping in Nigeria. It seems to be the most popular crime.
And in Rivers State, the Rivers Assembly accused Fubara of misconduct. It's like his woes are now never ending.
Also this morning, police identify men demanding tinted permit. Are these police officers or not?
And the falling of the naira is an area we're looking at this morning on Which Way Nigeria.
We also will take you through the newspapers this morning, share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria on a Tuesday morning.
Hello, and welcome to Breakfast Headlines here on News Central TV. I am Adebola Adedugba. In Rivers State, Governor Siminalayi Fubara has warned the newly appointed Chief of Staff and Commissioners not to use their new position to stalk or antagonize perceived political enemies. Governor Fubara gave the warning shortly after swearing in the Chief of Staff and also 5 special advisors at the executive chambers of the Government House in Port Harcourt on Monday. Let's also tell you that the Rivers State House of Assembly has accused Governor Siminalayi Fubara of engaging in illegality with regards to his recent appointment. The Speaker, Mati Namawele, leveled the accusation against the governor during plenary on Monday at the Assembly quarters in Port Harcourt, the state capital. The impeached Speaker of the Ogun State House of Assembly, Olakunle Oluomo, alongside 2 other principal career officers of the Assembly, Dayo Samuel and Adeyemo Adedeji, were on Monday arraigned before a federal high court sitting in Okemoson, Abeokuta, the capital of the state. Oluomo and the duo were dragged before the court by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission over alleged misappropriation of public funds running into 2.5 billion naira. Away from Nigeria, hundreds of people have taken to the streets of Niamey, the capital of Niger, to celebrate the announcement made by the military regimes in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger on their immediate withdrawal from the West African bloc, ECOWAS. The Prime Minister, appointed by Niger's regime on Thursday, blasted ECOWAS for bad faith after the bloc largely shunned a planned meeting in Niamey. And South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, has been suspended from the African National Congress, ANC, by the highest decision-making body, the National Executive Committee of the party, a political party that he once led. The suspension follows an announcement he made in December that he would not be campaigning or voting for the ANC. South Africa will be heading to the polls for the general election this year. According to the ANC, Zuma not voting or campaigning for the party while a member is a breach of the party's constitution. Zuma has been given 48 hours to respond to allegations leveled against him. In the east of the continent, the United Nations on Monday said fighting between rival communities in the disputed region claimed by both Sudan and South Sudan has killed 54 people, including 2 UN peacekeepers. According to local authorities, the clashes in Abia, a contested oil-rich territory straddled the border of both countries, broke out at the weekend. The office of Seychelles President Wavo Ramakalawan says that forces have freed a Sri Lanka vessel hijacked by armed Somali pirates. It is the latest attack against shipping in the Indian Ocean. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis have launched scores of attacks in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, targeting Israeli-linked vessel in response to Israel's war against the Palestinian militant group Hamas. And that's a wrap on Breakfast Headlines. It's back to Osagi and Olive.
Thank you very much, Adebola. Very interesting stories. There's some of them sad. But the story from Sudan, you know, I think it was an opportunity for us to remember that these crises are still going on in parts of the continent. We seem to forget them or get distracted, you know, with other big stories happening across the world. And if nobody is fighting for these persons who are being killed and who are being the victims of a crisis and of wars, civil wars here and there, then who speaks on their behalf? We've spoken, or I have spoken for the Palestinians, and I've spoken for a crisis in other parts of the world, but we should always remember that it also is happening down here, and you know we shouldn't forget them.
Absolutely, Osage. I'm just hoping, you know, all of these fights and, you know, conflicts happening around the world, which has, you know, a broader impact on other countries, you know, because we co-depend, you know, on all, you know, on countries for trade, you know, and all other things. I'm hoping all of these wars and conflicts would, you know, come to an end pretty soon.
Well, thank you, Adebola, for bringing us Breakfast Headlines. I mean, maybe this is one of the reasons why we have the days of world peace. But how peaceful have those days been? What are the effects of all these conversations? But we'll keep talking about them, and we pray for the people of South Sudan. We'll see you again at 9 a.m.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Very interesting start to the day. Remember that, of course, we're going to be here till about 9 a.m. If you have parts of, you know, these conversations that you'd like to contribute to, simply tweet at News Central TV and let us know your thoughts. Also, those who are on YouTube, remember you can be a part of the conversation. Let's know your thoughts. And of course, if there's breaking news stories that you'd like to share with us from wherever part of the continent or here in Nigeria that you're watching us from, please go ahead and do so. We'll take a short break. When we come back, of course, we'll move into our top stories this morning.
This morning on Which Way Nigeria, let's talk about the naira and the Great Fall. With the rate at which the naira is falling, it just might find oil. The Nigerian naira has witnessed a gradual decline in recent years, sparking concerns among economists, policymakers, and citizens alike. Worthy of note is the drastic pitfall the last 1 year has seen. Oh, naira, how the mighty have fallen. I remember the days when we traded in naira and kobo. Do you remember these good old days when we could buy bread for 5 naira, fresh hot double bread known as solo bread? At the time, pure water sold for 50 kobo, biscuits sold for 25, for 5 naira, I believe. And if you took 20 naira to school, automatically you were the biggest boy or the girl in the class. Because the days you would choose to buy food from the canteens known as Mama Put, you would order rice 5 naira, beans 5 naira, Meat 5 naira, plantain 5 naira. A full plate of 20 naira food will fill one's belly and one's heart. And no, I'm not a dinosaur. This didn't happen 100 years ago. Even though now it feels like centuries ago. This was what life looked like in the 90s, in the 2000s, or Y2K era, if you so prefer. Such good times, right? Now back to reality. The journey of the naira in the past 1 year has been chaotic. Its strength failing and falling to depths that we never could have imagined possible. And you know what's worse? It keeps falling. Scratch that. It's crashing. What is the worth of the naira measured against the US dollar? In January 2023, the exchange rate of the naira to $1 was 400 naira. 1 year later, and a dollar is worth over 1,400 naira. On the 14th of June 2023, the administration of President Bola Tinubu, through the instrument of the Central Bank of Nigeria, introduced measures to curb the free fall of the naira, chief of which was the flotation of the naira and the unification of the official and parallel market rates. He said this was done earlier on in his administration to save the country from financial hemorrhage. This then meant that the rates were to be decided by the forces of demand and supply. But like the Gen Zs would say, this policy was not and is not giving what it was supposed to give. In July 2023, the Economist Intelligence Unit, an arm of the Economist of London, said that the CBN lacks experience in conducting monetary policy under a float, and the need to control rapidly increasing inflation will become more acute over time. This is a position that many agree with. Now, when popular singer, songwriter that many of us know and love, John Bellion, sang his song with the lyrics, "I'm at an all-time low," I bet he hadn't heard of the naira. The accompanying fears are that the further the naira falls, the more it prevents influx of the capital needed to stabilize the exchange rates. We're seeing businesses folding every day. Foreign investors are leaving the country because of the difficulty of doing business in Nigeria. Now, the core reason for doing business, of course, is profit, and investors need to manage the risk. President Tinubu will have to do a lot of traveling to convince investors, but I don't know how much that will change, if the naira isn't yet stable. The CBN reportedly has injected additional $500 million into the foreign exchange market to help settle all legitimate foreign exchange backlogs as soon as possible. Will this help us? We don't know anymore. The average Nigerian is just tired of what seems like the implementation of trial and error policies. We want, need, and demand financial stability. As a means of mitigating the harshness caused by the removal of fuel subsidy, the federal government decided to provide 35,000 naira to each of its employees, a move that organized labor have referred to as a provisional solution, even as they pushed for a review of the minimum wage in 2024. Today, the 30th of January 2023, the federal government will inaugurate the Minimum Wage Committee. The purpose of this committee is to recommend a new national minimum wage for the country. Great news, right? But how much is really enough? No amount can currently measure up against the downward spiral of the naira. With every passing day, the purchasing power of the average Nigerian drops drastically. By the time the committee is done with its review, what will be the exchange rate? 2,000 naira to $1? I'm already hearing some people saying, God forbid, I reject it. Even me, God forbid, and I reject it too. But we all said the same thing when we first heard projections of 1,000 naira to $1. And what is our reality today? Does the federal government know a way out of this conundrum? Does the CBN have any other tricks left to turn around the plight of our currency? Will the day ever come when the strength of the naira is not measured by the US dollar? That one is a conversation for another day. Well, too many questions, no answers yet. We just need the naira to stop falling. This economy, they carry us go where we don't know. President Tinubu, help us. These are my thoughts this morning on Which Way Nigeria.
Thank you very much to Olive for that. Of course, a very important monologue. It's a question that many Nigerians are, asking, and an aspect, that is, the reality of the Nigerian life today. Anything that you didn't buy 6 months ago is very likely almost double the price today. If you didn't buy flight tickets when you should have bought them in August, they're almost double the price today. And the painful aspect of all of this is, if you don't buy them today,
it's going to be worse
tomorrow. It's going to be worse tomorrow. So
it's how I wanted to buy dollars a few days ago because I needed to do a foreign transaction. And I thought, it's too high. It's going to come down in another 1 week. Yeah. I regret not buying it at the time that I did because it's worsened.
I have my own regrets. They're very painful.
Does it have anything to do with not having bought flight tickets?
It does.
Oh, wow.
It does.
I'm so sorry. My thoughts and my prayers are with you.
There were about 500,000 plus in October or so. Then I should have bought it then. But now...
50 millions.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Stay in
I still haven't
Nigeria.
bought it.
You can go to Ibadan for your holiday. It doesn't matter.
I would buy it. Anyway, but this genuinely is, what people are having to deal with. A bag of rice a couple of years ago was 8,000 naira. More than a couple of years ago, it was 8,000 naira. As at that time, NYSC allowance was about 13,000 or so. Now NYSC allowance is 33,000. A bag of rice is 50,000.
And it doesn't matter how much they increase it. If tomorrow the government comes and says, which is my problem, if they come and say that they're increasing NYSC allowance, the core member allowance to 70,000 or even 100,000, or okay, let's leave the NYSC. Let's say the minimum wage. They're increasing minimum wage to 100,000. The value of that 100,000 cannot be felt.
Very true.
Because how much is a bag of rice?
Very true.
By the time you buy rice, oil, chicken, people are literally scrambling to survive.
Very true.
2 years ago, it was like, oh, they were talking about Ghana having one of the worst economies. We talked about it on TV and how Ghana was struggling. Right now, I think people would jump at what Ghana's economy would look like in comparison to ours.
I saw someone share a story yesterday about how about a year ago or so, 2 years ago, he was excited that he had a salary increment. So they had increased his salary and, to the dollar equivalent, it seemed like it was now a round figure, maybe $1,000 or $2,000 about 2 years ago. And it was exciting. But he's saying that in the last 2 years, with the depreciation of the value of the naira, he has now gone worse than where he was before they increased his salary. So, so even if they increase, like you've said, even if they give you a higher minimum wage or they give you, increased salary today, the value of that money is still not what it was before 2014, before, the Buhari government came into office. Because that, if you look at every indices, that's when it all started.
And it's even worse, twice as worse after the Tinubu government came into administration.
Anyway, let's move on, to other discussions this morning. We're going to kick off in Ogun State, where a group has faulted the removal of the former Speaker of Ogun State House of Assembly, Honorable Olakunle Oluomo, from office, saying the action didn't follow due process. The Coalition of Civil Society Against Impunity called for the review of the legislative action in the interest of justice, fairness, and rule of law. News Central's Bettina Nweli tells us more.
According to an impeachment letter signed by 18 members of the Ogun State House of Assembly on the 24th of January 2024, the lawmakers say the Speaker, Right Honorable Olakunle Oluomo, was removed because of gross misconduct, financial misappropriation, among others. However, questions are being asked regarding the process by which this happened.
In a democratic society, the separation of power is paramount. The action taken by some members of the Ogun State House of Assembly raised concerns about potential outreach and interference with the independence of the legislative arm. The coalition calls for thorough investigation into the motivations behind the purported removal of the Speaker.
The Assembly immediately elected a member, Oludaisi Elemide, as the new Speaker. According to him, the impeachment is within the constitutional rights of the members to elect those that will lead them in the House.
Both the standing order and the Constitution gives us the right to elect our Speaker. The Speaker is not in any way higher than members. He's just a first among equal. And whoever the members says is their Speaker is their Speaker.
This impeachment notice was served on Mr. Speaker on the 24th of January. And he was given 72 hours to answer to the allegations on this impeachment notice, which is very okay. But they got it wrong that they impeached him on the 23rd of January without giving him fair hearing. Now you impeached 23rd and you are serving this on the 24th. It's highly unfair. And so
a simmering tussle for the speakership had been threatening the peace of the legislative arm of government in Ogun State. Despite the emergence of former Deputy Speaker Elemide as the new Speaker, it has elicited a lot of concerns from stakeholders across the state as they feared for the future of the House of Assembly as a result of the divided House. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
Thanks to Bettina Winley for that also. You know, like I said earlier, the 2024 year did start with chaos here and there, you know, from Rivers State to Northern Nigeria and, of course, Ogun State, and even in your state, Ibadan. There's almost no state that hasn't had its own beat of either political or security challenges here and there. Ogun State, of course, you know, has been because of the impeachment of its former speaker, Oluomo. But there was also a bit of drama, you know, that came with his impeachment. There's also been allegations of the reasons behind his impeachment and the involvement of other people from the National Assembly and including in current day Ogun State Government House as the reasons behind his impeachment. What we know, and I'm sure every other person continues to remind Nigerians, I remind Nigerian politicians, is that as much as we understand that politics is a vehicle with which you, of course, you know, maybe bring change, we should never forget that the people who have made it possible for you to be in office are the most important factors in the whole, you know, of politics.
Equation. And I wish that lawmakers would be as swift to implement policies that will better the lives of the people whom they're representing, as swift as they are to make moves for impeachment. I mean, when they want to impeach someone, it's always very quick. When they want to impeach their speaker, everything happens very swiftly, and you wonder, oh, so they can work this quickly. So I wish that they'll be much more willing to actually represent the people whose interests, the people who put them there, the people whose interests they are meant to serve, rather than their personal interests. Politicking is it's very interesting, and we've seen the most interesting end of it here in Nigeria. And unfortunately, the drama doesn't end; it continues. Which state is next? I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. This is still Breakfast Central. We would like you to engage with us on social media at News Central TV on all platforms. We'll be right back after this short break.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yeah, can you sit back? You're not too close to the screen, or you're not. And okay, now that's too much. Okay, I think this is fine. Yeah, this is fine. Sir, can you confirm your location?
Home.
Ogun State, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for staying with us. Nigeria is facing an increase in kidnapping across different states. The Federal Capital Territory has gotten a fair share of this ugly act. Now, recently, the Abia State Police Command said it has commenced a rescue operation to free an abducted Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Abia State University, ABSU, Professor Godwin Emezue. Police Public Relations Officer ASP Maureen Chinaka stated that all efforts were being diligently coordinated to to rescue the victim from the abductors.
In a similar development, last week also saw the abduction of the chairman of the Lagos State chapter of the People's Democratic Party, Philip Aivoji, who was abducted by some yet-to-be-identified gunmen along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway before regaining his freedom in the early hours of January 29 by 1:15 a.m. The increase in insecurity has led to calls for immediate clampdown by Nigerians and civil society groups. Are Nigerians safe, even in their own country? Joining us now is Adewuyi Musa. He's a security consultant, and he will be talking to us about the state of insecurity here in Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, Elsara. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me.
All right. I think the conversation now is we're in a dire situation. With the state of insecurity, it feels like every other day we're hearing different stories of different people who have been kidnapped. The fear and the concern is whether this current administration knows what it needs to do to get us out of this situation, and if they have what it takes to get us out of this kidnapping ordeal.
All right. Thank you very much. To start with, I would like to let us know that the insecurity that we are witnessing in Nigeria, it's peculiar, and it's not common to Nigeria alone. And to say that the government does not know what they have to do in getting this sorted out or in getting this resolved, I will say we are only derailing from the facts. But do they have the genuineness to execute the solutions for us to get out of these positions that we have? I will tell you that I am not sure that the government has that genuineness, because there are so many things that we have to consider in this regards. The guerrilla war that we are facing in this country, we call it guerrilla in security field, but I can tell you that these are motivated. They are propelled by certain elements, and then you can't rule the fact that those elements are not governmental out of this case. So I will say the government know what to do. Of course, you can also be a witness with the recent deployment of Operation SIS, Sudden Intervention Squad, by the current police echelon, and it's working. But the political motivated element that also needs to be looked at, it's the other angle that we also need to talk about now.
Well, sadly, this is what we've been talking about for decades now. Political motivation, political will to fight, to do the right thing. We've been talking about this for so long, and it must be really heartbreaking, that we're back again, on this same cycle, back again having these same conversations about political will, back again having the same conversations about how we maybe are just not set up well enough, or there's just not enough inspiration to do what is necessary as a country and as the leadership of the country. But I want to ask, and before we get back to talking about the political aspect of it, I want to ask about your thoughts concerning the increase, as it seems, in kidnapping. Would you agree that it seems to be on the rise, or has it always been there, and the reportage is just getting more feed in the media these days? Is there more kidnappers? Are there more kidnapping cases, or is just being told, or the stories are just coming out more these days?
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I want to believe the current situations we are in is in the increase, is really rising, and it's not just rising at arithmetic progression. It is geometric progression. I can tell you this because you can actually witness what is happening in the Northwest. It's happening even in Abuja. It's happening in the Southwest. It's happening in the Southeast. You remember what is happening in Abia. It's in the increase. So I will agree with you that the current state of kidnapping is in the increase. And also must also mention to us that not all the cases of kidnapping that we are listening or hearing about in the media are actually, kidnapping, because these, let me just open this a bit. We have cases of missing people or missing persons. These are situations where people or persons have been declared missing after 24 hours. It could be that for different reasons. It might not be that, excuse me, that the person was kidnapped. And sometimes after 24 hours or 48 hours, you don't hear about it anymore because the person has been recovered. And then you also have cases of abductions where people are taken from their natural habitat, from their church, from their home, and they are forcefully taken to an unknown places. It might not be for economic reasons. It might not be it may be for retaliations or for political reasons. Just you don't want them to do certain things for a certain period. You want to send like emotional trauma to the family or to the persons concerned. And the other part, which is the continuous aspect of abduction, which is the kidnapping. And what we look at in that, it's the element of movement. You have taken that person away from their natural habitat to an unknown point, and then you are now placing demands. And those demands may be politically motivated, it could be economically motivated, and so those we need to have that understanding. And then those ones that are politically motivated, that are economic motivated, they are what is actually in the increase now, because a lot of people now saw that there is a catchment. They saw it as an opportunity to make both ends meet. The perpetrators, the actors, they now saw it as a very lucrative business to do because certain things, certain elements, certain departments, certain structures has failed us.
But I also want to know, and this is the reason I asked that initial question. Is there a reason, there is an increase in the, state of kidnappings? Because from what you said, it seems that there is an increase. But is there a reason why? Is it, because the kidnappers have seen that this is a very lucrative business, the Nigerian security agencies are, spineless, or, can't really do much, to help the situation? Or is something motivating this increase in kidnapping?
Of course, there are motivators. So many elements are motivating this. One of the motivators that I can mention to you that made me to talk about the political aspect of it is weaponization. And when I say weaponization, I'm not just talking about, people picking up arms to themselves. During the political regime or the era where people are trying to ensure that their political parties is enthroned or becomes the winner of the elections, certain things have been done. Certain people have been encouraged. They have been ardent. They have been weaponized to the point that, after the era of the politics, now the political parties now know their bearings. How do you return or recall those weapons? How do you de-radicalize those elements who have been added? So that's one of the motivators that I can actually speak to for now. And then another motivator is conflicts, unresolved conflicts. You have issues in some communities, and then the right element of conflict resolutions have not been adopted. And then we're just thinking that people will just believe that they don't have to come against themselves anymore. No, we have to make sure that both parties are called to the table, and then both communities, just like we have in the South, are called to the table, and then they are resoluted. We find a common ground to ensure that they all cohabit and live together. And then feeling of marginalization is another motivator. If you continue to enjoy, the national cake and others are not enjoying it, and then they saw that the legal framework is really toothless. When you commit a crime, and the next time or in the next 24 hours, you already have your backbones, they get you out of the hook, and then you are back on the street. So nobody wants to report anymore. Nobody wants to talk anything about it. And so everyone is living in fear. So those are the core motivators I can readily speak to now.
All right, let's look at some of the responses we've heard by law enforcement agents. Yesterday on the front page of the newspaper, there was a headline that read, "Kidnapping epidemic, tracking device shortage hindering police probes according to the sources." Now, if you go further and read that story, they said top sources in the Nigerian police force had told the correspondents of the newspaper that the police had continued to rely on the state-of-the-art tracking device belonging to the DSS, resulting in long delays in investigation and arrest of abductors. So is this reflective or indicative, if this is confirmed, is this indicative of a country that understands the seriousness of the plague of kidnapping? Because if we're still depending on insufficient state-of-the-art equipment that only the DSS has access to, then what really is the hope for the average common man when? Because at this point, it's no longer if, when there is a kidnap.
Okay, so, we also need to be very worried and very careful about certain posters and, correspondences that we pick up from the medias. When I saw it yesterday, and I said, okay, the police is saying, people are saying that police is handicapped because police formation had been relying on devices from the DSS. Of course, this is one of the things that we security professionals have been agitating. There should be sharing of intelligence amongst our security structures or infrastructures. And then if you are sharing intelligence, of course, it could be also resources. You can share that. So I am not going to go into that because that could actually be a decoy. So the point is, do the government, do the security agencies actually have the right resources to use or not? Because don't forget that the PRO, police PRO, has also come out to say, look, police is doing everything within their ambit, and they will continue to do more to ensure that criminality is a thing of the past in the society. And so we would not be looking at whether they are to go to DSS to get resources. Of course, why are they there? They are there to work together. So whether we are in short supply of resources, of course we are. Of course we are. Are we really security conscious? Because if we are security conscious, not just as a government, even as a people, there is this slogan that when you see something, you say something. Now, what we are saying is that when you see something, you do something about it. You don't just sit down alone and say, no, it has not gotten to me. It has not come to my doorstep. Now it is with my neighbor. But when you don't do anything about it, you live in a community, and then you don't get to also giving your best to that community. You don't get to be involved in the things that happen in that community. It's also come back to us. It's come back to us. So now, talking about whether the government is serious about people, about what the state of insecurity in this country. Of course, I am not going to hold brief for the government, and statistically, I can actually tell you, just like I've mentioned, that the government is coming up with some effort, with some deployment, but what we are looking at is the genuineness. Those that you have empowered to bear arms, to carry arms. Perhaps they are your clanmen, you share the same, sentiment, or the same demographies, and etc., etc. You don't want, the same set of people to see you as coming against, your folks. So that's the genuineness of the purpose we are looking at now. That is the willingness that we are looking at now. But the government as an organization is coming up. The government is saying, yeah, if you have seen anything, report to the police. There are so many kidnapping cases that are not reported. Even if they are reported, some of them, you only hear about the influentials, the PEP, the politically exposed persons or the VVIPs, cases being mentioned, or those whose family are ready to follow their cases up. There are a lot of them that you don't even hear about. And why are we not getting all this report? If we are not getting them, the position of statistics will be biased, because everyone will now be speaking from the angle of an uninformed perspective rather than speaking statistically to say, look, this is the number to speak to this particular increase, and this is what the government has done, and this is where the government has also failed. So that would be my point on that.
All right, I just, final question from me is, if we're being realistic about, I mean, do we genuinely expect to not have this level of crime and criminality when we, over time, have failed to stop the flow of arms into the country? If you look across, there were pictures on the screen just now. These bandits and these armed groups have all sorts of sophisticated weapons and assault rifles. They have it all. They have not been manufactured locally. They came in through, Nigeria's borders. And so if we failed in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years to stop this inflow of arms into Nigeria, are we serious, that, we generally think that maybe, we can solve the criminality that comes with that many weapons in the country? Or, should that be the very first thing that Nigerian government should, be tackling now? Getting the guns out of, their hands and stopping the inflow of weapons, into Nigeria. Should that be the first step?
Okay, thank you, Otaro. I mentioned a particular point that has to do with weaponization and capacity for brute force. People already have arms, and the arms are not being retrieved. They have it. They can do whatever they like with it because they are criminally minded. And recalling all these arms is practically impossible for now. So one of the solutions that we security consultants are speaking to is to allow the citizens to have a common structure for citizens to bear arms. If there is structure for people to be licensed to bear arms, if you are coming to attack someone, of course, you will also know that there is capacity for that person to withstand that attack in self-defense. But that's not the case now. The government at the time had requested the citizenry to submit arms, and then if they have submitted the arms, they have been rendered powerless, almost powerless. And then the government agencies, the police, the DSS, the military, we have different deployments and formations from the military, who is also supporting in this regard. Do they really have the weapons to withstand this? My answer, based on statistics and what we have seen, will be yes. But the deal is the command and control. Don't forget that if you have not been proven guilty and sentenced by a competent court of law, you will not expect the police or the military to start taking lives on their own, because there are rules of engagement in all of these things.
Yeah,
and then when the criminals are seen, certain controls, certain commands are not given. And then until when they have been brutally, attacked, because you remember the case of the three anti-riot policemen that were just, abducted in Delta State as well. They were invited to the scene. They got in there and then they were overpowered.
All right, Mr. Adewi Musa. There are conversations that are ongoing, and we hope to have you again. But we have come to the end of this conversation. Thank you for your time with us. We hope that we'd have more positive news the next time we talk about the state of security or insecurity in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. All right. Let's move away from that to talk about update regarding the Nigerian Police Force. The Nigerian Police Force has identified the 3 officers involved in an accident in Lagos, where a motorist was stopped and asked for his tinted glass permit by officers without uniforms or ID cards. ACP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, the first public police officer, confirmed information on his verified Twitter handle saying, "Show tweets." Of course, that's it. The policemen have been traced to Zone 2 and identified. The AIG Zone 2 Lagos is investigating, while the PPRO Zone 2 Lagos tweet will speak to it as soon as possible. Thanks and happy Sunday. That's an interesting tweet there. The officers have been traced to Zone 2 Command, of course, Onikon Lagos State, and an investigation is underway by AIG Zone 2. The incident was reported by a user at MC_RNB, a Twitter handle, who encountered men in mufti driving an unmarked bus, claiming to be police officers from Zone 2. Despite the demand for a tinted glass permit, the user insisted on seeing their identification cards, which they couldn't provide. He If you haven't seen that encounter, here it is.
Yeah, well done. Sorry, what's the name?
Hello.
It's a factory tinted car. And I can't remember the last time police is asking for tinted permit because that has been cancelled 2 years ago. For that, yes.
For tinted permit.
Yes. And which police division is this?
From ZID, from Zone 2.
Zone 2?
Yes, from Zone 2.
Which location? Zone 2 from where? Ikeja?
No, not Ikeja.
Where?
VIA.
VIO, yeah.
I said VI.
Okay, VI, yeah. Okay, what's your name?
Please, sir, can you bring your tinted permit, sir?
They don't do tinted permit. I just told you.
No,
they don't the request for tinted permit. That's what you should ask. First of all, I'm not even sure you're a police officer. Let me see your ID card, please. Can you present your ID card?
Okay, let's see your. Can we see your?
Bros, can I see your ID card?
No, I'll show you my ID card.
Let me see it now. Now let you. I never see her. Where may I see her? Bring her come outside, bros.
I can't give you.
Why now? I want to thief your police. I'm not going to thief her now. Bros, they kidnap up and down. I'm not feeling let you enter. Bring her come outside, bros. If you not bring her, I know they come outside. How am I sure you're a police officer? Look at how you are dressed and you are stopping me. When kidnapping full everywhere. Undercover. Okay, so why did you stop me? Can I see the uniform person?
No, it was Oga. No, Oga, please don't be rude. We are here because of you. We don't know what is happening.
It's not the way you stop me. You stop me for middle of the road. I said they say stop person.
Oga, wait.
When kidnapping happen, you see the way you stop me. You know how my heart fly.
Oga, cool down. No, we are here because of you.
Please, can I see your ID card first of all? Please, can I see your ID card?
I don't have my own ID card here. Please.
Wait,
I'll show other I'll show you.
Please,
cool down, please.
Can I just look? Let me see your own particular. Let me see. Oh yeah, let me see that Oga on. Now they make me fear. So can I just see? Just show me. May I see the names? Your name? I can't see your name there.
What do you want to do with this? You want to see the name?
Let me see your ID card. This is my ID card too. See, this is my ID card. Oh yeah, look at it. This is my ID card. This is my ID card.
Why you do that? It's not okay.
Bros, see, now you are the feel like the reasonable person here. You cannot stop me. You are dressed on this thing, and you don't stop me like that. This is my ID card. I work with Nigerian FM. This is R&B. They asked for tinted permit. When was the last time they asked for tinted permit? When they have stopped it since then?
Well, that's the unfortunate interaction between the motorists and the police officers. And I think it's very important here that we show that one thing is clear. And the one thing that's clear here is the mode of arrest that we see. And this is not the first time we've seen this happen, right? The mode of arrest hasn't been the mode as prescribed by the law. It's okay for a citizen to ask you to identify yourself as a police officer. First of all, how do you just jump? I've seen it happen a number of the times. You just jump in front of somebody whilst you're on the express. That's enough to cause panic. With the state of insecurity, it's important if you're going to exercise your functions as a police officer, dress in your police uniform. If you're not dressed in your police uniform, the very least you can do is identify yourself. I don't think he was asking for anything out of order.
No, it definitely wasn't. You know, if they claim to be undercover police officers, then you should have your ID card. You know, it's not hard. Can a police officer open his mouth to say, I don't have my ID card here? Don't they have any, at least there should be some shame.
No.
You know, you are trying to get somebody or asking somebody for, to park or to open their car so you get in. Then they say, okay, where's your ID card? They say, I don't have my ID card here. What kind of undercover police officer is that? But it's a good thing that the police spokesperson says that they have been identified and arrested. But I always believe that there is not enough punitive measures in the police force, and that's why
because tomorrow this will happen again.
It will continue happening. And, this new mode with which they then drive unidentified or unmarked vehicles and, harass Nigerian citizens across the country, at some point it's going to once again blow up in their faces.
Sometimes
I can imagine if this was, and so I want us to now imagine if this happened to a person who didn't stand his ground and ask these questions that he was asking. Identify yourself, and I'm not coming down for my vehicle until you identify yourself. Imagine this happened to a regular Nigerian, and I know that there's a lot of these cases that happen, yes, where, of course, they accuse you of one thing or the other. How is undercover policing, looking for people with tinted permit and the ones without tinted permit? I mean, help understand how that is the most relevant thing that the police, of course, these 4 grown men or 3 grown men thought that was the most important type of policing that
Well,
they needed
they'll
to
tell
do,
you that according
in
to the
time.
Police Act, that part of their responsibilities as police officers is stop and search. No one's disputing that. But if you're stopping and searching in a place and you're functioning in the capacity of a police officer, the very least you can do is identify yourself as a police officer. In fact, many years ago when I was in law school, the mode of arrest that they taught us is not what we see today. They would say to you that before the police officer searches you, you should search the police officer. You're entitled to search the police officer first. And after you search the police officer, then the police officer searched you. But I realize that is what I ordered, this is what I got.
yeah.
That doesn't happen at all.
Yeah.
But kudos to the police for fishing out these very fishy officers, and we hope that there'll be strong deterrents to prevent more police officers from acting in this manner.
Again, I don't believe that there would be that, and I don't believe that there's ever really been a lot of it, because you can tell that they still haven't changed. The attitude of Nigerian police is not different for what
And
it
if they
was,
found out that he
50
was
years
filming,
ago.
they would have either seized his phone or made him delete that content.
Yeah.
So I think the next step is for people to start buying cameras in their cars,
Well, good luck with that also.
honestly. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's look through the front pages of the newspapers this morning to tell you what the big stories are. We're starting off with the Daily Trust newspaper. The bad news there is the big news. Okay, that's not the worst news for Nigerians. ECOWAS crisis. Nigeria at receiving end. Citizens will require visas to travel across exiting countries. Terrorists might up their game, according to a security expert. We would be poor, according to the Dons. And at the top of the paper, I'll start from the right and end at the worst story. Supreme Court, Kano governor denies striking deal with Tinubu. US suspends British Nigerian minister for calling Israel's actions genocide. And the final story, and the worst story for Nigerians, Naira plunges at 1,500 Naira to the dollar at parallel market. We have this morning joining us Ikechukwu Amechi. He's the publisher at the Nation newspaper. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
I don't know if there's anything good about this morning at this point. But, I mean, the newspapers, the front page says 1,500 Naira to the dollar. Which way? Like, how did we get here? Just last year, January last year, it was 400 Naira to the dollar. Now, I don't know what percentage, because this is not even 100%. We've seen the rates quadruple. And it's scheduled to most likely get worse. Does this government have any idea how we can get out of this?
Renewed hope, don't forget. So
The hope is not looking renewed at this point.
So we are renewing our hope every day. See, what has happened is that, and I'm sorry to say this, the problem that we have is that when you confront the issues, those who are in government today say it is, as we say in local parlance, it is bad belly. But it can't be. The truth of the matter is that there's nothing that the Tinubu administration has done in the last 7 or 8 months that should inspire hope in anybody. None. And, it is harebrained economic policy for anybody to wake up in the morning in an economy such as ours and to say you are removing subsidy and then you are floating the naira at the time you did. The fundamentals are not there. You are an import-dependent economy. And you are swallowing the Bretton Woods theories. People will come on national television, those who say they are experts, and they will be espousing economic theories that mean nothing. All you have to do is to look at what is there. The economy, the inflation, everything. It's about you and I who go to the market every day. Go to the market and find out. Even what they are telling us about inflation being at 28%, does it make sense? Because almost everything in the market has quadrupled in terms of price. So it will still get worse. In fact, I am foreseeing this because as at yesterday, it was 1,400. So in a space of 24 hours, we've added another 100 naira, making it 1,500. At this rate, even before Easter, don't be surprised that it will get to $2,000 exchanging.
And that is scary because
2,000 naira exchanging for $1.
It's worrisome because it doesn't seem like there's any urgency with getting this fixed. And people always throw Zimbabwe and Venezuela, and use them as examples, of where Nigeria might be headed. And the response to that all the time would be, oh, God forbid, which of course is a Nigerian way of speaking. But it does. Can you see anything?
No, I don't. If you ask me, I would tell you that this government has no idea what to do. All they are good at is propaganda. But you can win elections through propaganda. You can't govern using propaganda as a governance tool. No, it is impossible. And that is what we are seeing right now. Look, there must be deliberate policies. And in any case, where is our president?
Is in France.
He's in France.
Where is our president? A country in dire stress. And the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces is in France for 2 weeks on private visit. We must be jokers in this country. I blame the people. If the people say enough is enough, a friend of mine was telling me yesterday, they said Nigerians have not suffered enough. If they suffer, they know what to do.
Feels like, I think it's the anecdote of the frog in boiling water. It seems like as it gets worse, we're sort of adjusting to the temperature. And I honestly don't know the way out of this. I don't see, we talked about CBN injecting $500 million into the economy. Do you think that, to sort of clear off the first backlog, FX backlog that we have?
All those things are knee-jerk measures. Look, people need to sit down and say, I don't know of anybody in that 48-member cabinet of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that inspires hope. If you know of any, tell me. I don't see anybody there that inspires hope. Those in the that oversee our economy, whether it is the coordinating minister of the economy or whether it is the guy in the CBN or so, I am sorry to say, those people don't inspire hope. So we are in for a very, very, very cold season. I don't know how Nigerians are going to navigate out of this. Don't know how long it's going to last, but nothing there tells me it's going to be something that will end today and tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah, very, 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 very painful, what the reality is. Let's go to the Punch, see if the stories are brighter on the Punch, hopefully, not expecting. Kidnapping epidemic, over 17,000 Nigerians abducted under Buhari, and Tinubu says a report, it's like the kidnapping Olympics now. Buhari 90%, Tinubu 10%. I can't believe this. This is hard. It is shocking, seeing that these are the kind of conversations we're having. How abductors killed 2 Ekiti monarchs, says a source. Naira falls to all-time low at official market sales at 1,348 to the dollar. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger exit may weaken ECOWAS trade report, a $277 billion ECOWAS trade report. ECOWAS trade, I beg your pardon, says the report. Lawmakers accuse Fubara of unlawful conduct. Governor warns pro-Wike appointees. Bribery, Lagos CP probes DPO. 8,285 candidates seat computer base, WASE on January 31st. And of course, federal government to U.S. signed MOU to train police special squad commanders. Interesting. Very interesting. All right, let's start with the kidnapping Olympics that is on the Punch this morning. Over 17,900 abducted under Buhari, and Tinubu says the report. Of course, Buhari is still winning with 90%, Tinubu 10%. Let's start with how shocking, maybe disgusting that headline is, of course, but it's the reality of Nigeria. And then we can also quickly speak about the Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger issues from yesterday.
Well, in any country where 17,000, and I dare say that is even an understatement, but let us even go by what Punch has there, 17,000 people kidnapped in the last 8 years. I think that's a tragedy. I don't know why our leaders don't see it as such. The president went to Imo the other day and said he's winning the war on.
I think they do.
If they do, they will behave otherwise.
Yep, they do. It's just that they're not directly affected, you know, and I don't think they care enough about the people who are affected.
Again, that is also the tragedy. That leaders, those who call themselves leaders of your country, don't care whether all of us are kidnapped and ransomed. Is a tragedy. You know, two traditional rulers in Ekiti, yes, two of us, were killed yesterday, but there were three. One managed to escape. They killed two, the kidnappers. And of course, in fact, even the story in the Punch today, it is a rider to the headline. It's not even
a main headline.
The main story. Headline. It is a rider. Two traditional rulers killed. And people are taking it in their strides. And the president is telling us that they are winning the war on insecurity and all that. The truth of the matter is that Nigeria, again, sorry to say, but is a failing state, if not a failed state. Because what we see as the new normal in this society, if it happens in any other place, it calls for national emergency. Right now, we ought to have a national emergency on insecurity and how to address it. But you see, it took Buhari 8 years to score 90%. 7 months of Tinubu, he has scored now 10%. If Tinubu stays 8 years, he will score 2,000% over and above whatever Buhari did. And it's going to only get worse. Because, tell me, what new thing, what new thinking have you seen in the last 7 or 8 months of the Tinubu presidency that is better than what Buhari did?
Or even different?
Different from what Buhari did in 8 years? None. And you expect the problem to just, you close your eyes and open it and it has gone away. When it has become very, very lucrative. There is this story also that broke yesterday. A family in Abuja, they kidnapped the wife and the mother. The wife, after 10 years in marriage, had a baby. So the mother came all the way from Benue for Omugwo. And they took the woman, the mother, and the 1 month baby away and demanded 90 million. Of course, now the poor husband, a policeman, could not afford that. The baby fell sick and they sent another woman they had also kidnapped. They sent the woman and the baby to a hospital and gave the woman the number of the man and said, if you get to the hospital, call the man. Then they killed the woman and her mother in Abuja. The day area of Abuja. This story broke yesterday. And see, nothing shocks Nigerians again. Nothing shocks Nigerians again. The Nabia chaps, what? A lady, brutally murdered. All we are saying, now thank God that the other 4 or 5 now came out. How can we get to that level? Even if it is only one person, any state that is worth being called a state will make sure that there is justice for that one soul that was taken away by these bandits. The country has been overrun. The traditional rulers were kidnapped in Ekiti, not in Bauchi, not in
not
Niger.
In Borno, not in Zamfara, and everything those places.
In Ekiti. Last week, the PDP, Lagos PDP chairman was kidnapped along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. He spent 4 days in captivity. Of course, nobody will tell us how much ransom was paid. So it is a hopeless situation. I don't see what this government is doing or has done that is different from what Buhari did, and I don't see how we can do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result.
All right, let's look at a different paper this morning. Let's look at this Nigerian newspaper. On the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, 45 terrorists wiped out in Kaduna military airstrike. Army hands over 35 rescued kidnapped victims to Governor Rada. 2.5 billion naira fraud, EFCC arraigns impeached Ogun Speaker Uluomo, 2 others. Banji orders investigation as gunmen murder 2 Ekiti monarchs. Stop distracting Tinubu Southern elders, caution senators. Insecurity, FCTA storms tunnels, green areas, as police rescue 3 abducted persons in Abuja. CBN injects additional $500 million to clear forex backlog. To be honest, I just feel like all these headlines are just a repeat of some of the things that we've spoken about. Yeah. But maybe you can speak on the Ogun Speaker. The EFCC arraigning the impeached Ogun Speaker, Uluomo, and 2 others for 2.5 billion naira fraud.
And the drama in Ogun State generally in their political scene. Pretty interesting.
When you hear this level of fraud, alleged fraud anyway, you know, we move from one level to the other. You know, there was a time in this country when if somebody misappropriates 100,000, it is big deal. Now, if you read in the papers, of course, it won't even be there in the papers that somebody embezzled 100 million. Nobody's going to. It's like, is the man normal at all? Why are you embezzling 100 million? So it must be billions, billions. The Speaker of the State House of Assembly allegedly misappropriating 2.5 billion. How did he even get access to 2.5 billion of government money in the first place? You know, the EFCC goes about this media thing and they will announce it, and of course everybody will say, and the next day it goes off because a bigger story is coming. But we cannot win the war on corruption by reacting after the fact. Somebody has taken 86 billion, like the former Accountant General of Nigeria did, and is there no way of stopping this from happening in the first place? Are there no institutional guardrails that can be erected so as to stop these people from having access to so much money. How did the speaker have access to 2.5 billion naira? What was he supposed to do with it?
Well, bear in mind, that one of the complaints that was made about the speaker was that he wasn't sharing the money. Governor would give them money, he would, not release it for everybody. He will hold him to himself. Which paints a picture. That if he maybe was allowing the thing to flow to everybody, then probably wouldn't be having these complaints today about Speaker Oluomo. Thank you very much for stopping by. Unfortunately, it's been such a long time that we went through a newspaper review and we had cheerful stories. It's been so long, but
I don't also see it happening very soon. Yeah. Anytime soon.
Anyway, that's what we have for our newspaper review this morning. As always, thank you very much, Mr. Aivoji, for stopping by. We'll see you again. To our viewers, you can tweet at us. Let us know your thoughts on any of these stories. Be a part of the conversation as always. Simply tweet at News Central TV, and we would love to share your views with our live audience. Stay with us. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we continue this morning on Breakfast Central. And the conversations move on now to Rivers State, where the State House of Assembly has accused Governor Siminalayi Fubara of engaging in illegality with regards to his recent appointments. The House Speaker, Martin Amaewhule, leveled the accusation against the governor during plenary yesterday at the Assembly quarters in Port Harcourt, the state capital. The appointments made by the governor are to head the three parastatals of government, namely the Local Government Service Commission, the Bureau of Public Procurement, and the New City Development Authority.
But the Speaker noted that the mode of appointments was provided for in the law and that there is no provision for acting chairmen. Martin Amaewhule also accused the governor of tyranny, adding that the House had resolved to write a warning letter to the governor against his actions. The letter, of course, has been written, and we'll be taking the writings, or what the letter is saying. We'll be sharing that with you shortly. The new developments in the Assembly have continued to fuel speculation about whether or not the House would resume its aborted impeachment proceedings against the governor. Let's now bring in Henry Ekine. He's a legal practitioner and the National Legal Advisor, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, CDHR. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be on the platform this morning.
All right, let's talk about the drama, the ongoing drama and maybe continuous drama happening in Rivers State. First of all, what exactly is the current situation? Are we going to see an end to this drama? And do you see how Governor Siminalayi Fubara would be able to have a very productive time as governor with the current crisis he seems to be having with the House that never really ends?
What indeed is needed here is, I think, understanding of the effect of all of these avoidable and unnecessary skirmishes. If those who are the partakers in this trouble realize that it really has negative effects on governance and then on the expectations of the people of Rivers State and residents here, then I think, and again, if they are conscious enough to retract, then I think we'll have a way forward. But otherwise, at the moment, and with the experiences that we perceive here, and even the actions in courts, and then the utterances by these partakers in this unnecessary and avoidable trouble, it doesn't seem that any truth is close to us at the moment. It doesn't seem that we are close to the end at all, because there are a number of courts actions with regards to all of these issues about the legitimacy of even the Martin Amaewhule and his other 26 former members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. A colleague was counting the suits that are pending in different courts at the moment to rise up to about 11. And I was surprised. I personally know about a number of those suits that have just recently been filed, this time by civil society organizations, by citizens, individuals themselves, not particularly these political office holders. So it does appear that we're not close to the end in any way. But Martin Emezue and his 26 former members of the University House of Assembly, I insist, I hold that view that they are former members because they cease to be members of the University House of Assembly on the very day they unjustifiably defected from the political party that sponsored them to that legislative house, that's the People's Democratic Party, and then moved to the All Progressives Congress without justifiable reason, whatever reason they advanced, clearly are not justifiable. Because those issues are sub judice in different courts, I wouldn't get deep into that. Then the governor having a free administration, so to speak, it's not far-fetched because it is clear that the distractions that we have since October of 2023 and now, it's even trying to be a bit focused on administration. Otherwise, there would have been palpable kind of distraction and then the negative effects on governance. But as it is, governance is going on, administration is going on. We could hear the announcements, the appointments of aides, and then those who are to assist the governor in executing his constitutional functions. And then again, projects, fiscal projects in terms of implementing the 2024 appropriation law. I'm deliberate about saying this because as far as I'm also concerned, and I hold the view, legally so, that the Rivers State government had actually in cabinet considered a draft appropriation bill in 2023 and laid that bill before the Rivers State House of Assembly, and then which legitimately and duly as required by Constitution, that the powers of the legislative house are exercised through bills. It could be executive bill in this nature of appropriation bill. And the Rivers State House of Assembly had considered that in 2023, gone through the first reading, the second reading, the committee stage, could be a committee of the whole house, and then the third reading, and transmitted that bill to the governor who assented publicly. And so we have an appropriation law, if you like, the budget for financial year 2024, which is already being implemented. Because the fact that government is going on and then payments are being made, salaries are paid, based on the appropriation, on the 2024 appropriation law, and then projects are being implemented, executed, payments are being made. Even the legislature themselves, it does appear that the government, anytime, any way this year, had expended or released any money to them, then it would be part of the implementation of the 2024 appropriation law. And that law has not been repealed. So the government is going on to a large extent. And relatively, there is peace here. Despite the unnecessary and avoidable crisis, we really haven't had serious threatening crisis with regard to that. So it's been within the sphere of the political office holders in terms of probably the legal contestations that we really have. So at least the participants have been able to consider themselves bound by the decisions of court, one way or the other, except that there are conflicting decisions in most of these areas. But they seem to hold the decisions that are favorable to them. But that's worrisome as well.
All right. I want to ask, for those who are still a little unclear about whether these House of Assembly members are, legal or illegal. If you defect to another party, can they argue that because they hadn't gone through the process of, the documentation of, or rather full registration process with the APC, can it be said that they maybe didn't fully defect and they are still members of the PDP, and so, they are still legally members of the, Rivers State House of Assembly? Is there any loophole here with which they can claim to still be members of the PDP and, should not be kicked out of the Rivers State House of Assembly? Help us understand, that part. And then also, I'm hearing that we also heard yesterday that Edison here, I think, has now been made Chief of Staff to the Rivers State Governor. Can you help us clarify that? How do these political, tussles happen, work rather, in Rivers State going forward?
Yeah, thank you. Let me take off from the first to clarify the process or procedure, constitutional procedure with respect to defection of legislators in a legislative house. there is no requirement as to formalizing registration with the new political party. What the constitution or the law really is at the moment is that the defecting legislator will, on the floor of the House, write to the Speaker of that House or the President, if it is the Senate, as the case may be, and then communicating his movement from the sponsoring political party, the political party that sponsored him to that legislative house, to the new political party. And of course, perhaps advancing some reasons, because apparently the provision of Section 109, subsection 1G is a positive provision. Positive provision in the sense that it is definite and direct, that if this happens, that's the automatic outcome. That is, if you defect, then automatically you have vacated. Provisor in provisions in Constitution are to give conditions for some exception. That's how constitutions should be interpreted, that there is a definite positive provision of that principal section, that is section 109, subsection 1G, that if you defect, you have automatically, and that's what the Supreme Court has said, the effect of that defection is automatic vacation, cessation of that office. You no longer are a member of that house. So the only way to do that is to communicate the Speaker, and that had happened in Rivers State House of Assembly. All 26 other members wrote to Mr. Speaker, and on the floor of the House in plenary, on that day, that very fateful, of course, for me, a dark day for them, they actually read out those communications by each of them, and then they publicly have defected. Now you asked about the formalization of their membership of the political party. That is outside of the Constitution. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria only established political parties, but vests the power to make constitutions for themselves and then procedures and other regulations within the political party. So it is not the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or any law of the National Assembly that will provide as to how to be a member of a political party. So that is left for the All Progressives Congress to say whether these individuals have become members of their party by fulfilling other internal conditions of that party. But on the face of the Constitution, with respect to elected members of the Legislative House, at that point, they are not seen as members of political parties, but they are legislators of that Legislative House. It is when they do that communication. So in Rivers State, they have done that communication. So there is no doubt about their defection. There is no loophole for them to come the roundabout way to say, oh, no, we are still members of the People's Democratic Party. And as a matter of fact, they have all clearly, even up to this moment, they are sitting purportedly, because for me, they are not members of the House of Assembly. They are not sitting or convening or summoning sittings of the Rivers State House of Assembly. They are probably meeting as committee of friends somewhere.
So just to be clear, whatever agreement that they reached with Mr. President, Siminalayi Fubara, Nyesom Wike, and all the terms and conditions of that agreement do not apply. Is that what you're saying as well?
No, they don't apply. You cannot subtract any provision of the Constitution with any kind of agreement by anybody. It doesn't matter whether the person is as highly placed as Mr. President. And let me say the foundation to this in our Constitution. Section 1 of our Constitution has made the Constitution supreme, and that every provision of that Constitution has binding force on all persons and authorities. And that includes Mr. President, and then the office of Mr. President as an authority. So, and again, as the 7th schedule to the Constitution, Mr. President has taken an oath of allegiance before he assumed office. And what is the effect of that oath? That he stands to protect, defend, and uphold all of the provisions of that Constitution. And as a matter of fact, ensure compliance by anybody. That's the oath that Mr. President, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, the Governor of Rivers State, and then all the legislators had taken. So it meant that if you were even going to any mediation of any kind on any issue that may be presented before you, was expected that once any of those issues relate to provisions of the Constitution, you were to be guided by the provisions of the Constitution, not any discretion or any arbitrariness. You see, when we continue to profess here that we should uphold the rule of law, sometimes we seem not to understand what indeed the rule of law means. It is indeed the supremacy of the law. You cannot imagine any other condition. Now, what is that? The supremacy or predominance of the law as distinguished from mere arbitrariness or any discretion that is not known to law, that is not connected to law. So let me say clearly, what I questioned, or rather tagged the meeting they had in Abuja, was at best an Abuja imposition, where Mr. President and those on his part merely directed an elected governor, a democratically elected, it's a shame, it's an aberration, a democratically elected governor of a state, and then those other stakeholders, particularly the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, has no provision in our constitution as to any function to perform with respect to the administration of River State. So at best, if it's intruding, it's treason.
All right.
And we haven't looked at that at all. Mr. President looked the other way and then directed the governor of River State to come back and then recognize people who the constitution has already clearly, without any doubt, unambiguously declared non-members of the Universal House of Assembly. So there is no way that purported 8-clause agreement will override the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's the summary of it.
All right. I would like you now to speak to the appointment of Edison Ehe as the Chief of Staff and the other 5 special advisors in the government house.
Oh, yes, thank you. Right Honorable Edison Ehe resigns his position as a member of the River State House of Assembly representing Ahuda East Constituency 2, and then also resigned his position as the Speaker of the River State House of Assembly. So he became an ordinary citizen, and if he's eligible to be elected into the House of Assembly, then of course other considerations that the governor may have, and then the governor perhaps on the basis of loyalty and commitment to his objectives and his direction to governance had considered him worthy to be his chief of staff, to direct his affairs and then the administration of his office. So we heard, and then I think I can confirm that on the media, that the governor had actually sworn him in. This wasn't really quite surprising, because sometime in December, between December and end of January, I think about the 31st of December, in one of the functions in Opobo town, the hometown of the governor, there were indications that Edison Ehe had been appointed the chief of staff. But at that time, there was no public announcement in that regard from the side of government. So, but eventually, the former chief of staff resigned his position, and so the governor clearly appointed Edison Ehe and has now inaugurated him as his chief of staff. Edison Ehe has demonstrated, I'm not speaking for the governor, but watching from the sidelines, the events and activities that have gone on since October and now, Edison Ehe had demonstrated some commitment and loyalty to the governor in relation to all of these skirmishes and crises in River State. So, and again, when you are to make such appointments of who to be your chief of staff and closest to you, I think beyond the qualifications, one of the conditions you may consider is commitment to your objectives and agenda in government and your programs, and then, of course, loyalty and allegiance to you. So it's the governor alone that probably is in the position to adjudge that, and so he has appointed him. Then the other advisors, Section 196 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria empowers the governor of a state to appoint such number of special advisors to help in the execution of his programs. And I think it's probably pursuant to that the governor has appointed special assistants and advisors to his office. And then the same way, commissioners too, I think that is Section 192 empowers the governor to appoint commissioners, and then further in 193 to assign responsibilities and functions to him. And let me quickly say this, that in River State, oh yes, please. Okay, let me quickly say this, if you permit. In River State, controversially, we woke up someday and heard that the clerk of the purported House of Assembly under Ameule, which of course is not, had announced some invitation of some 9 former members of the cabinet, commissioners who resigned their positions willingly, to appear before the House for screening. It was controversial. Between Monday, Tuesday, the government could not confirm whether the governor actually sent that nomination. We tried to reach out to the commissioner for information. He couldn't confirm that. But eventually, anyway, that has become history, because the government later came up to confirm sending the renomination of those persons that they've been cleared. It is only the governor that has the power under our constitution to assign responsibilities. All right,
Mr. Ekene, thank you so much for pointing that out and being able to shed some light on the topic. We certainly wish River State, and especially Governor Siminalayi Fubara, all the best with his time in office, and we hope that all can work out right for Rivers State. Thank you so much for your time with us.
Thank you very much. That's our prayer and our hope as well. I would do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.